Welcome to our business news, brought to you by Agusto and Co. Nigeria has a huge infrastructural gap, which will require up to $3 trillion over the next 30 years to bridge. To put this into perspective, the federal government of Nigeria would achieve less than a third of this target if the entire 2021 budget of 13.6 trillion naira was spent on capital expenditure continuously over the next 30 years. The fact that less than 3 trillion naira was appropriated for capital expenditure in the 2021 budget underlines the deficit in infrastructural spending in Nigeria. Sadly, the dire fiscal position of the federal government has left little or no room for investments in infrastructure, which is vital for an emerging economy like Nigeria. With a projected revenue of 8 trillion naira and a budget deficit of 6 trillion naira, discussions around optimizing underutilized state-owned assets in the country are becoming louder. Over the next 2 years, the Nigerian government intends to sell or concession no less than 36 state-owned assets to raise funds and drive infrastructure development. Different models have been deployed in the past to resuscitate non-performing or underperforming assets, including sales to investors and public-private partnerships, what we call PPP. As can be expected, there have been varying levels of success. We believe that to ascertain the project or the assets with the best chances of success, there are two litmus tests that must be carried out. Number one, to check the political feasibility of the project, and then number two, to check the commercial viability of the assets. In other words, does the government have the political will to see a sale or concession through? Are the economies of the project strong enough? And will people be willing to pay competitive rates so that investors can recoup their funds? In the rest of this video, we will discuss models that have been used by the Nigerian government, highlighting the challenges and key takeaways for each of the models. The private sector participation model. Under this model, state-owned assets are not sold. However, the private sector is allowed to participate and compete. This model has been successful in the telecoms industry, where Nitel, the state-owned telecommunications company, was stripped of its monopoly, and subsequently investors such as South Africa's MTN were allowed to compete in the telecom space. The government received as much as $285 million for new telecoms operating licenses way back in 2001. The rest to say is history, with many private sector-led telcos entering into the Nigerian telecommunications industry and changing the competitive landscape, making the industry grow in leaps and bounds. The companies also contribute a significant amount in taxes. For instance, MTN, over the last 19 years, has paid the government in taxes and other levies a total of about 2.3 trillion naira. Public-private partnerships, or what we call PPPs, involve collaborations between the government and private sector companies to finance, build, and operate infrastructure projects. The Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas, or NLNG, is a PPP between the government, NNPC, and international oil companies. The NNPC is a minority stakeholder with 49% equity stake, and thus the Nigerian government is entitled to annual dividends and royalties from the PPP. Over its history, NLNG has paid dividends of over $36 billion, 49% of which has gone to the Nigerian government. As part of the government's efforts to create an environment for the implementation of PPP projects, a 15 billion naira infrastructure fund was created through the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, Africa Finance Corporation, and other financial institutions. The infrastructure fund, we hope, will attract local and foreign investments in infrastructure development in Nigeria. So in conclusion, there are upsides and downsides to the handing off of critical state-owned assets that have been dormant over the years to the private sector. Some of the upsides include less pressure on the national budget, a potential increase in tax collection, increased employment, and improved service quality. Ultimately, the privatized assets could be listed on the domestic securities exchange, giving savers more investment outlets. The downsides are a high level of corruption and the risk that contracts are not made in the best interest of the country. Take, for instance, the Process and Industrial Development case, P&ID, which remains unresolved in the British courts. There's also the risk of underperformance on the side of the awardees of the contract, and the government's insistence on controlling pricing, which adversely impacts the ability of the private sector investor to earn commensurate returns within the set time frame. Clearly, given the government's weakening revenue generation capacity, private sector involvement is a good approach to tackling Nigeria's infrastructural deficit and improving federal account revenue. However, it is important that there is willingness from the government to surrender ownership to a large extent and reduce price control over these investments. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Also hit the notification bell to get notified of our new content.